where I have diversity, particularly where I have multiple stories of plants growing there, a low, intermediate, and higher story. And then I have plants with many different leaf shapes, leaf architecture. It's much harder to have photosynthetic leakage because as that sunlight goes down through that canopy, then the different leaf architectures and the different plant stories are going to capture it at some point. And think about that. That is our principal energy source, period. And if we're wasting it, then that is causing negative, again, back to the rule of compounding, okay? It's causing negative compounding effects. So, but the more, the reverse of that, the more we capture, the more positive compounding and cascading effects are occurring. If a plant is intercepting more sunlight, every plant in that whole array of plants in a field is now producing a lot more root exudates, feeding a lot more microbes and a lot more species of microbes. And they are then producing biotic glues. It is aggregating the soil for us, infiltrating water and oxygen. They are grabbing nutrients out of the soil and feeding those nutrients to the plants. They are producing enzymes that are breaking the bonds and bound nutrients in the soil and making them available for plant uptake. I mean, on and on and on the cycle goes, and if there's one thing that is probably the worst thing that we're doing today in modern agriculture, that is this failure to capture sunlight adequately.
Mm-hmm. And to me, they're related, right? We're slowing down the sunlight. We're slowing down the water. I haven't had enough time to ruminate on what we're slowing down with regard to the nutrient cycle and the biodiversity, but you got to slow down the sunlight and slow down the water, because that water hits the bare ground too fast. We've all heard about the capping of the soil that happens when a raindrop hits bare ground and all those things. So if we can slow that down and get it to infiltrate, then we're doing a better thing as far as those things are concerned. So and again, one thing that I think we should not move on before we touch on is the fact that diversity came up in all three of these, the 6, the 3, and the 4. Diversity, and how much of American agriculture is monocrop. Even the cattle ranch, the place that's only doing beef cattle, is only doing beef cattle. And so there's opportunity for increased diversity there too. And so I think that's something that we should definitely call attention to.
Yep. And I would add that we have monoculture income in much of agriculture today because of that. We limit the resiliency of an operation. We're actually limiting the ability to transfer that opportunity to the next generation. And think of it this way, Clay, you're Western South Dakota, large landscape. How many head of sheep could a lot of those ranchers add without doing any much extra? It added a little bit to labor, but think of the economic gain. Think of the benefits to the ecosystem. I just look opportunity, when the team goes out and consults on a farm or ranch, one of the things we look for is what we call the low-hanging fruit. Where can they get the biggest bang for their efforts, so to speak? And I agree with Alan. It's the leakage of solar energy and the ability to stack enterprises. And we often hear that, I can't do that, it's too much work. Well, not really.
Yeah. Sage Askin told me one time, he said, I think the average 300 cow ranch could sell 100 cows, bring in 1,000 sheep and a herder, and you haven't really updated, you might have more paperwork to do now with the herder, but you haven't really upped your labor at all. They're going to do most of the labor on that deal. There will be a few days a year that you've got to show up and help with, docking or whatever it is, but there's the, that was kind of one of my many red pill moments on the Working Cows podcast is, oh, well, that changes the way I look at the world.
Yep.
Is these, get rid of 100 cows, bring in 1,000 sheep. And that would be, I'd say, conservative if you've got a herder with them. You could, there's a big opportunity there that's missed, and it's an opportunity to introduce diversity.
There's a reason they were called the mortgage lifters.
That's right. And Clay, let's look at, so what is one of the major issues going on right now in livestock agriculture? It is HPAI in poultry, highly pathogenic avian influenza, right? Well, let's parse this apart and let's present the facts. Okay. So the vast majority of poultry enterprises in North America are what kind of enterprise? They are a monoculture system enterprise, and they are all confined. They're all indoors in a semi-climate controlled system, right? Well, 99% plus of all the cases, whenever, and I get these news threads every day. Okay, so I'm seeing this every day, wherever they're finding a new infected flock, 99% plus of the time, where is it? What is it? It is a commercial flock, okay, that are completely enclosed. So they're in a complete monoculture system, even more of a monoculture system than a cornfield or bean field. Okay, I would contend, because they don't have anything from the outside interacting with it, like at least a cornfield and soybean field can have something else interacting with it, right? But these birds confined inside of these houses don't. So that has created birds that are much more susceptible to HPAI. And when you hear about, okay, what is transmitting, what is carrying, what are the vectors for HPAI? Well, wild birds, particularly wild waterfowl. Well, I don't remember the last time I saw, a flock of ducks or geese flying through a commercial broiler house or commercial layer house, right? Or even wandering around in them. So
that's an invasive species. We got to get rid of that.
Right. So how in the world is this transmitted from the ducks and the geese, inside the houses to where the chickens are, and why are they so susceptible? Okay. It's in the wild birds, but yet they've been able to develop immunity. Okay. Immunity to it. Do you have some die? Of course you do, just like with any other disease. But they're able to develop an immunity. But what are we doing? Okay. The moment you have a bird test positive in a flock, you kill the whole flock. So now what you have done is, instead of reducing the incidence of the disease and reducing susceptibility, you have dramatically increased susceptibility to the disease, because you are not allowing any resistance to develop in those birds, So again, monoculture systems, whether crop or livestock, actually foster, facilitate, and encourage disease.
It seems like everybody's got a definition for regenerative agriculture, and I would imagine that the 6, 3, and 4 are a big part of your definition for what regenerative agriculture is. But let's talk about that. What is the definition of regenerative agriculture? Whose is correct and why?
Yeah. So understanding ag, this is our definition when we're asked, what is regenerative agriculture? And it's simply this: farming and ranching in synchrony with nature to repair, rebuild, revitalize, and restore ecosystem function, starting with all life in the soil, moving to all life above the soil.